Hi, today's video is all about the Asahi Auto-Takumar 55mm f1.8 vintage lens. This is an old lens dating back to the 1960s. I wanted to make this video because I think it's a very underrated lens, especially when you think how cheaply you can pick these up. The one I've got here was around 35 to 40 pounds. Probably very similar in US dollars as well, and especially as a lot of people go for the 50mm f1.4, they tend to not go so much for the 55mm f1.8, which personally I think is a bit of a mistake. I think it's a very good lens. As you can see on the images, it's a pretty sharp lens for its age. It's got a very nice look. Whether you think it's got the mythical 3D pop look, I'll leave that up to you. So the lens itself feels absolutely lovely. It's a metal lens, but it's very light. This one here is on an E-mount to M42 adapter, and it screws on and off. So if I unscrew it now and hold it up to the camera, you can see it is a very, very small lens. It has clicky f-stops, as you can hear there. The front of the lens actually moves in and out when focusing. Shouldn't affect too many people, but if you have a matte box or something like that, it might affect it slightly. As you can see there. So the manual focus on this feels absolutely lovely. As it is an M42 mount, it will fit most mirrorless cameras. In fact, probably all major mirrorless cameras. So you just need to get a dummy mount from your camera, say whether it's E-mount, RF mount, L mount, whatever, to the actual lens itself. So it's pretty much a universal lens in that respect. Though there is one problem with the M42 mount. When changing the aperture ring, if you're not careful and you do it too heavy-handed, it can start to unscrew it. As you can hear here, and you can hear where it starts to unscrew. So if I try and demonstrate here, so if I go to the end now, and if I'm a little bit heavy-handed with the aperture, you can see it starts to unscrew. It's not the end of the world, it's just something to be aware of. The aperture itself is f1.8 to f16. It also has an auto option, hence the name Auto-Takumar, though this doesn't actually work with the dummy adapter. And of course it doesn't have autofocus, but you wouldn't really expect it with a lens that's over 50 or 60 years old at this point. So believe it or not, this lens is actually older than me. The lens itself has actually yellowed over time. Probably not as easy to see holding it up here. You can see if I hold it into the light, a slight yellow tinge. Some Takumar lenses are actually slightly radioactive, and that does cause yellowing. With this one itself, I think this is more due to the coatings yellowing rather than it actually being radioactive. I'm not aware of any radioactive ones around this time, but you can use a UV light to reverse the yellowing. I myself actually left it in the sunlight for a little while, and it did actually make it much better. I just left it on my windowsill. Not that much UV light, but a little bit, and it did ever so slightly reverse the effects, though it still has a tinge of yellowing, which you can adjust with white balance anyway. As you can see here, there is some flaring, and it does lose some contrast. The flares look really nice, almost like a rainbow. I use this for both video and photography because it is a manual lens. It is actually nice to slow down, stop a bit, and just check your composition and adjust the focus. It helps you stop and think. And for video, I love manually focusing anyway. Even though autofocus is great, and I have Sony camera with the latest AI chip and so on, sometimes just using manual focus is a whole lot better. Though I would use a decent monitor if you are going to manually focus a lot, or tools such as focus peaking, or even both. So this lens was actually one of the first vintage lenses I picked up, and it actually started my addiction of vintage lenses, hence why I cover a few on this channel. I think they're a really good way to get into different lenses, and sometimes it's really good fun to actually manual focus and go back to how things used to be, really. Plus it gives a different look, and people are really into the vintage lens look anyway at the moment, but sometimes it's just good fun picking up a vintage lens and using it. For me, it's up there with the Helios 44-2. It doesn't quite have the swirly bokeh of the Helios, but it has its own unique look, which I really like. They both have a lovely vintage quality to them. So a fault with this one, apart from the yellowing on the lens, you do get some patterning in the aperture blades when you stop it down between f2 and f3.5. This is sometimes caused by a lack of oil or just getting stuck, and it almost looks like a shuriken or a Japanese throwing star. But overall, if you can get past that, I absolutely just love the image. And for me, for 30 to 40 pounds, which I paid for this lens, it's not a big deal at all. So that was a look at the Asahi Auto-Takumar 55mm F1.8, a vintage lens from the 60s. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again in my next one. Thank you. Bye bye.